These are the recordings for chapter 28. Um, remember that we are on the phylum Mollusca, just called the mollusk. And the mollusks are divided into the bivalves, the gastropods, and the cephalopods. Now, the bivalves means they have two shells. Gastropod actually means, gastro means stomach and pod means foot. So the gastropods are called stomach-footed because their foot, the foot portion of their body plan, is in the area where you would think their belly would be, but they use it to move. The gastropods are the largest class of mollusk. They include slugs, snails, whelks, and conchs. And I don't know the difference. You can look it up. They look the same to me. Limpets and nudibranchs. And I never knew what a limpet was until I watched that show. Gosh, what is the name of it? Where they dump people off, and they have to live on their own and see who is the last person that's surviving. I cannot think of the name of that show, but my husband got into it, and that was one of their food sources was limpets. Anyway, the gastropods do have a well-developed head region where the bivalves don't. And here's a picture of a flamingo tongue shell, which it looks to be a type of what they call a nudibranch. And then this is, of course, a snail. Now, the cephalopods are my favorite. They are not my favorite shell because they don't make shells, but most of them don't anyway. But they're my favorite of the three. The cephalopod means head-footed. They have a big head. That's their big thing is they have a big head. They include the squid, the cuttlefish, and the octopus. They do have well-developed sense organs. They're very, very smart. It's really fun to Google the cuttlefish and the octopus and just look at different videos on YouTube and TikTok of how smart they are, different things that they can do. This is a chambered nautilus, which does have a shell, but most of the cephalopods don't. This is a squid, which my husband would call bait. But of course, we can cut the squid up into little rings and we can fry them, and we call that calamari. A little bit chewy, but a lot of people eat cephalopods and like them. I wish there was a picture of a cuttlefish because they are so cool, but maybe I have a video about cuttlefish. Maybe we can watch it. We'll see. So moving from the mollusk, now we're going on into the segmented worms called the annelids. The annelids have a hydrostatic skeleton. It means it's a skeleton made of fluid rather than bones. But it does give them something for their muscles to push against, Annelids have a specialized digestive tract. They have a mouth at one end, an anus at the other end. They have a closed circulatory system. But where we have our nerve cord, our spinal nerve cord, that goes down our back, we call that a dorsal, and ours is hollow. Dorsal hollow nerve cord, whereas the annelids have a ventral solid nerve cord. Their nerve cord is along their stomach, and it is solid. Most annelids, believe it or not, even though I'm using the earthworm as an example, which is, a terrestrial animal, but it definitely is not, does not live in salt water, but most are actually marine. Most of the annelids are marine. So they have setae or bristles that help them in movement. The oligochaetes, like the earthworm, have few setae, and the polychaetes have many setae. So the earthworm is an oligochaete, and leeches are oligochaetes. Examples of annelids are earthworms and leeches, which are your oligochaetes, and then your marine polychaetes, which most annelids are marine polychaetes, like clamworms. When we talk about earthworms, they do have a complete digestive system. They have a mouth and an anus. They have nephridia, which are related to kidneys. So here we're looking at like a urinary system developing here. And reproduction is very interesting. They are hermaphrodites. And what this means is that every earthworm, you can't call them male and female, because every earthworm has both the male and the female reproductive organs. So when they mate, they lie together in parallel to each other. They face in opposite directions. They have a segment called a clitellum that fuses and secretes mucus that protects the sperm from desiccation or drying out. And they each release sperm into the other, and each of them produce offspring. So that's what a hermaphrodite is. We're probably going to dissect an earthworm, so we'll learn more about them. Most other annelids are marine polychaetes. They have setae or bristles in bundles on parapodia. Clamworms like Nereus are predators. Leeches are usually found in fresh water. They don't have setae. They do have 2 additional suckers. And this shows you a leech on a person, and then this is the head end of a clamworm, and you can see the parapodia with the setae attached. And then we move on to a different phylum of worms called the Platyhelminthes, which literally means, platy means flat, helminthes means worm. These are the flatworms, which include the parasites, tapeworms, and flukes. They have a flat body. They do not have a body cavity or a coelom. They are protostomes, so they have 3 tissue layers, but they don't have a coelom. They don't have specialized circulatory or respiratory structures. They only have 1 opening, meaning that they have a mouth, which also functions as an anus. This is an example of a freshwater flatworm that is not a parasite. It's sometimes is studied in biology labs. It's called a planarian. And the planarian, the genus name is Dugesia. Planarians live in fresh water. They do have auricles, which are sensitive to touch, seem to be sensitive to touch. They are in the place where ears would be. They have 2 light-sensitive eye spots. They have a ladder-type nervous system. So there's some specialization in the planarian. They are like earthworms. They're hermaphrodites. They reproduce by regeneration, and they have a head region, so they've undergone cephalization. Now, the other flatworms, which are parasitic, are the trematodes or flukes and the cestodes or tapeworms. Neither of these have a head region, so they have the loss of cephalization. This is the life cycle of a blood fluke schistoma, which basically have 2 hosts, the human and the snail. And tapeworms do have an anterior region, but they just don't have a head. They don't have like a true head because they don't have a brain or anything, or even a primitive brain. The head region is called the scolex, and behind that there's a long series of proglottids, and those contain a full set of male and female sex organs. The pork tapeworm is called Taenia solium, and it has 2 hosts, the human and the pig, and it will form a cyst that lodges in the muscle of the pig, which is how humans get it, because the pork is not cooked, not cooked hot enough. All right, the rotifers are really cute little animals, but they are microscopic. The phylum is Rotifera. They are named for a crown of cilia known as the corona, resembling a rotating wheel at the top of their head, mouth region. And it serves as an organ of locomotion, and also it helps bring food to the mouth. And this is an illustration of a rotifer. And you can also Google rotifers, and there are videos of them that you can watch. But here's the mouth, and you can see the corona, and the corona just rotates. And it's a very, very interesting little animal. Now, the second group of protostomes are called ecdysozoans. And the ecdysozoans are known because they molt, they shed their their outer covering, called a cuticle. They shed their cuticle. So the ecdysozoans include the roundworms or nematodes, and then the largest group of invertebrates, which is the arthropods. Okay, so the Nematoda, phylum Nematoda, are the roundworms. These include like heartworms, dog heartworms, and they include pinworms and hookworms. Especially little kids that go to daycare can get infected with these little roundworms, and they go away after 2 rounds of deworming medication. But the species of roundworm called C. elegans, or I'm going to see if I can say this, Caenorhabditis elegans, has been used extensively as a model animal in genetics and developmental biology. And I just say that, and I highlighted that because I know that's a question on your practice test. So parasitic roundworms include Ascaris, which is an intestinal roundworm, Trichinella, which can be contracted from eating rare pork. It's not a tapeworm, though, because tapeworms are flatworms. Filarial worms, or heartworms. Wuchereria, which causes the disease elephantiasis. You can see this poor man, how big his leg and foot have swollen up. He's got elephantiasis. Picture of a male and a female roundworm here. These look like heartworms to me. And then this is a picture of a cyst that roundworms can form. All right, phylum Arthropoda. The arthropods, arthropoda means jointed legs or jointed appendages. Arthropods are characterized by having an exoskeleton of chitin. They're ecdysozoans, so they do molt, just like the roundworms. They can either have 3 body regions like insects, a head, a thorax, and an abdomen, or they'll have like a fused head and thorax and then an abdomen. They do have well-developed nervous systems. They have a brain and a ventral nerve cord, like the earthworm. The nerve cord goes along the stomach. They do have eyes, simple or compound eyes, and they have a variety of respiratory organs. Some of them have gills, some have trachea, some have what we call book lungs, and they undergo metamorphosis, meaning changed form. Sometimes they undergo complete metamorphosis, like a butterfly, a caterpillar into a butterfly, and sometimes it is incomplete metamorphosis, where they just go from a juvenile stage to an adult stage. And this is an example from the class Insecta. This is a dragonfly. You can see it molting here. Now, one group of arthropods are the crustaceans. They possess a crusty exoskeleton of calcium carbonate and chitin. The crustaceans include the decapods, which are your shrimp, lobster, crayfish, and crabs, the copepods and krill, and the barnacles. Barnacles are actually crustaceans. That's one that's really hard to remember on the lab practical. And because you don't normally see the animal that is a barnacle, you normally just see the barnacle shell on the side of a boat or piers, So this is a crab, this is a crayfish, and then this is a gooseneck barnacle, different crustaceans. The crayfish has a cephalothorax, which means that the head and the thorax are fused. 5 pairs of walking legs. The abdominal segment has swimmerets to help it swim. It does breathe through gills. Crayfish have an open circulatory system rather than a closed one like humans. They have a well-developed nervous system, separate sexes, no hermaphrodites here, and then they have green glands, which function as kind of like your urinary system, your primitive urinary system. This is a picture of a crayfish. Then we have centipedes and millipedes, and the difference between the centipede and the millipede is that each body segment of a centipede only has 1 pair of walking legs, whereas millipedes, on their abdominal segment, they have all of those segments have 2 pairs of legs. So you see the 2 pairs, the 2 legs together on this side. There'll be 2 on the other side as well. So this is a millipede, and then on the left is a centipede. And we will start the next recording with the class Insecta of the phylum Arthropoda.